I never thought I'd be in a situation like this, honestly. I always believed that if two people loved each other, nothing could really tear them apart, at least, not in the way I found out my wife, Lisa, had been doing behind my back. We'd been together for almost 5 years, married for about 3, and I thought things were solid. Sure, we had our usual disagreements, but nothing that should have raised any major red flags. Until last week. It all started a month ago when Lisa began acting a little off. She was more impatient, snapping at me over small things, and she kept canceling plans last minute. I brushed it off at first, thinking she was just stressed with work. She's a project manager at that environmental NGO, focused, driven, and a bit bitchy when she's overwhelmed. But then I noticed her phone getting more attention than usual. She'd hide it when I walked into the room, and if I ever tried to look at her screen, she'd quickly flip it over or put it in her purse. That's when I started thinking, okay, maybe she's hiding something. The worst part was her behavior around our shared interest, our passion, ocean conservation. We've done a lot of volunteer work together, and I genuinely thought we bonded over saving the planet. But recently, she seemed distracted when we talked about our latest project, and I'd catch her in little lies. Little things at first. No, I wasn't at the office late, she'd say, but then I'd find out she was out with friends after hours. Or she'd claim she was doing research, but I'd see her scrolling through her phone in a way that looked different, like she was hiding something. One day I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling great. The house was strangely quiet, and I figured Lisa was out because her car wasn't in the driveway. But then I noticed her phone sitting on the kitchen table. I didn't think much of it until I saw the messages. Her phone was unlocked, and I caught a glimpse of a text exchange that made my stomach drop. It was from some guy named Jake. They were talking about meeting up, and the tone of those texts. I mean, it wasn't just friends catching up. It was flirtatious, suggestive. They were planning to meet that same evening. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. I couldn't believe it. My wife, Lisa, who always told me she loved me, was planning to cheat on me with her research vessel partner, someone she'd been working with during our own environmental cleanup project. They'd been doing research together, traveling on these big boats, sharing meals in close quarters, and I guess somewhere along the line, it turned into something more. I sat there, frozen, trying to process what I'd just seen. And then I remembered how she'd been acting lately, more distant, more secretive. The little lies, the late nights, her phone always in her hand, it all clicked into place. I knew then that whatever I was feeling, angry, betrayed, humiliated, it wasn't just about the affair. It was about how much I'd trusted her and how completely she'd lied to my face. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I wanted to confront her immediately, but part of me hesitated. I needed to think. I needed to plan. I realized this was just the beginning of something I wasn't sure I could come back from. Her betrayal wasn't just about the cheating. It was about who she was hiding. Herself from me, who she'd become behind my back. I never imagined I'd be in this position, but here I was, staring at the evidence of my wife's infidelity, and the gut-wrenching feeling of betrayal was only just starting to sink in. The moment I saw those messages, everything changed. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew it needed to be done carefully. I didn't want her to get suspicious, not yet. I needed more proof, some way to understand how deep this rabbit hole went and what exactly she'd been hiding. So I waited. I spent the night thinking about everything, replaying that moment over and over again, feeling this mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. The next day I kept my cool during the day, but inside I was boiling. I decided I'd bring her home from work that evening and have a serious talk. I needed to hear her lie, her excuses, her bullshit. I wanted to know how she'd justify this. I also knew I had to be smart about it. No yelling, no accusations, just a calm, controlled confrontation. That was the plan. I didn't want to ruin everything in a moment of rage, but I was ready for whatever she'd throw at me. When she finally came through the door, her face lit up like she was happy to see me. That fake smile, that "hey honey" tone, God, it made my stomach turn. I played it cool, welcomed her in, and we sat down in the living room. The moment I felt her relax, I decided to drop the bomb. I told her I knew about the messages, that I'd seen everything. Her face immediately twisted into that bitchy smirk like she thought she could manipulate me with her lies. "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting, it's nothing, just a stupid flirt. It doesn't mean anything, I swear. Jake's just a friend. We're just working together. You're making a big deal out of nothing." Her voice was dismissive, but I knew better. I saw her eyes flicker, that guilty flicker that betrayed her. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I knew she was cheating, that I'd seen the texts, the plans to meet up. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she still kept up this act, like she was the innocent victim in all this. She started lying even more, throwing out excuses like she was on autopilot. "I was just talking to him about work," she said, her tone dripping with contempt. "You're so paranoid. Honestly, I don't even think I want to keep doing this anymore if you're going to accuse me of every little thing. Maybe I was tired of pretending everything was perfect." That last part stung, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I felt a mixture of heartbreak and fury. I couldn't believe I married someone who would do this, who would betray me like this over some stupid research vessel flirtation. I asked her outright if she'd been sleeping with him, and she rolled her eyes again, saying, "You really think I'd cheat on you with him? Please. Jake's just a tool for work, that's all. You're being dramatic." But I knew better. I saw through her bullshit. She thought she was clever, lying her way out of it, but I'd seen enough. I knew she'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. That night was the worst. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling between anger and sadness. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily? I felt like I'd lost everything, my wife, my trust, the future I'd envisioned. I kept asking myself if there was any way to fix this or if it was already too late. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there, staring me in the face. I also started thinking about what this meant for us. Did I want to stay and fix it? Or was this the end? Every time I looked at her, I saw her face, the bitchy smirk, the dismissive attitude, and I realized she didn't care about how much this hurt me. She was more worried about keeping her little secrets hidden, about saving herself. That's when I knew I had to make a decision. But right now, all I could feel was this ache deep inside, like my heart had been shattered, and I wasn't sure how to put the pieces back together. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything except the betrayal burning inside me. Every time I saw her, Lisa, I could see the fake smile she wore when she was lying. It made me sick. I started noticing other things, small signs I'd missed before. She became more defensive, more aggressive when I questioned her about where she'd been or who she had been talking to. She'd snap back, "You're just overthinking this," or "You're crazy," and I hated that she could dismiss my feelings so easily. One morning, I decided I needed to get some proof beyond what I'd already seen. I started digging through her emails, her social media accounts, anything I could find. It wasn't hard. I'd noticed her using a different email account for work, and I figured there might be something there. Sure enough, I found messages, more flirtatious texts, plans to meet up, even some explicit talk about getting together for sex. It was worse than I thought. It wasn't just a fling, it was an affair, and from the tone of those messages, they'd been doing this for months. I felt this deep, sinking hole in my stomach. How long had she been lying? How many times had she pretended to be the perfect wife while she was sneaking around? I couldn't believe I'd let myself be blind to it for so long. All those nights she claimed she was working late, all those little lies, I now knew they were all just cover stories. And the worst part, she had no remorse. She still kept up her act like she thought she could get away with it forever. That night I finally confronted her again. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the emails, the meetings. I told her I'd seen her with Jake at the research vessel, how she'd been lying to me the whole time. Her reaction. She just scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said, "You're crazy, you're paranoid, I don't know what world you're living in, but I didn't cheat on you." Her words felt like knives. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't. The evidence was there, clear as day. She started to cry then, fake tears, that exaggerated sniffling she always did when she wanted to manipulate me. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whined. "It was just sex, just some stupid fun. I swear I love you, but I needed something different. I was feeling trapped, and Jake made me feel alive." Again, I wanted to scream at her, tell her how pathetic she sounded, how she had lied to my face so many times I couldn't even count. But I kept my voice steady, cold even. I told her I wanted her to leave. I couldn't live in this lie anymore. That night she packed her bags and left, her bitchy attitude still intact. She kept throwing those dismissive glances back at me as she walked out the door. I felt like my world was crumbling, and all I could do was stand there and watch her go. I hated myself for feeling like this, for feeling broken and betrayed, but I also knew I had to be strong. I told myself I'd get through it, that somehow I'd find a way to move forward, even if it hurt like hell. In the days that followed, I started thinking about revenge, not in some destructive way, but in a way that would serve as a lesson. I couldn't let her get away with this. I wanted her to know I wasn't some doormat she could cheat on and walk all over. I decided I'd make her regret what she'd done, but I'd do it smart and cold. I wasn't the kind of guy who would blow everything up without a plan. No, I was going to get her back in a way she'd never see coming. And honestly, I was already plotting how to do it because I wasn't going to let her win. Not after this betrayal. Not after she tore my trust apart. This was just the beginning. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I needed to hit her where it hurt, but not with some petty revenge that would make me look just as bad. I wanted her to feel the pain, to understand she couldn't just toss aside a marriage like it was nothing. I started gathering evidence, not just of her affair, but of her manipulative, bitchy attitude that she used to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. I knew she was good at hiding her tracks, but I also knew her weaknesses. She hated being exposed, especially when it came to her ego. So I did my homework. I kept tabs on her, not obsessively, but enough to get a clear picture. I enlisted a friend, one I trusted, to help me wire her phone, just enough to catch her in the act if she slipped up again. I also took some photos of her with Jake at the research vessel, just to remind her that I had proof. The goal wasn't just revenge, but to make her realize she couldn't keep fooling me, that I had her figured out. Meanwhile, I started to think about how to handle the fallout. I wasn't planning to destroy her completely, at least not yet, but I wanted her to see me as someone who wasn't going to sit around and take this betrayal. I wanted her to understand that her lies and her manipulative attitude had consequences. I started planning a way to confront her with everything, to make her see that I was serious, that I knew her game. Then, it happened. I was at work when I got a tip from my friend that she was planning to meet Jake again. Not just for sex or some quick fling, this was serious. She was talking about moving in with him, leaving everything behind. I couldn't believe it. My legs felt like lead and my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I knew I had to act fast. I didn't want to lose her entirely, but I also didn't want her running away with this secret, our secret, the life we built. That evening I arranged to be home early. I wanted to catch her in the act, or at least have her believe I was clueless. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, pointed at the main entryway, just in case she brought Jake over. I didn't want her to know I was watching, not yet. As I waited, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. If she walked through that door with Jake, I knew my life would change forever. Sure enough, a little after sunset, I heard the door open. My stomach clenched. I saw her, Lisa, her bitchy smirk back on her face, holding her purse, looking around like she owned the place. And with her was Jake. They walked in, smiling a little too intimately, and I could see the flirtation in their body language. I pressed record and I watched as she leaned in, whispered something in his ear, and they kissed passionately. It hit me like a punch in the gut. She wasn't just cheating, she was throwing her entire life away for some fleeting excitement, some stupid affair on a research vessel. That was the moment I realized I couldn't just confront her anymore. I had all the proof I needed. I'd seen her with my own eyes, caught her red-handed. I felt a strange calmness settle over me, mixed with a fury I'd never fully experienced before. I knew what I had to do next. I'd let her have her moment, then I'd show her what betrayal really looks like, what happens when you push someone to the edge. As they left that night, I saw her glance back, that bitchy smirk still glued to her face. I knew she thought she'd gotten away with it, but I also knew I'd make sure she'd regret crossing me. I wasn't going to be the fool in this story. This was just the setup, and I was ready to make my move. Because betrayal like this, it doesn't just hurt, it destroys. And I was determined she'd understand that, even if it meant burning everything down first. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My mind kept replaying that. Seeing Lisa with Jake, that smug look on her face, the way she kissed him like she owned the world. I'd never felt so humiliated, so betrayed in my life. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't let her see that weakness. I had to stay cold, calculated. I needed to think about my next move carefully. I spent the day gathering myself, organizing everything I had, screenshots, recordings, the photos of her with Jake. I wanted to be prepared for whatever she threw at me. My plan was simple: confront her with everything, make her own her actions, then decide what to do about us. I wasn't going to be some fool who got played for months. No, I was going to take control of this mess, even if it meant tearing everything apart. That evening I messaged her, pretending I was just checking in, playing the calm husband. She responded with a flirty, dismissive attitude, like she thought she was untouchable. I knew that if I wanted to get through to her, I'd have to do it face to face, so I told her I needed to talk. She agreed with that bitchy edge in her tone and showed up at the house about an hour later. When she came in, I didn't waste any time. I laid out all the evidence I'd collected, the screenshots, the recordings of her with Jake, the photos from the research vessel. I watched her face drain of color, her bitchy smirk fading into something more fragile. She tried to deny everything at first, saying, "You're crazy, you're twisting things, making it worse than it is." But I cut her off. "No, Lisa," I said, my voice steady but cold. "You've been lying to me for months. I saw you with Jake. I saw how you kissed him at the research vessel. I saw the messages. Don't try to deny it now. You're just making yourself look worse." Her eyes widened and she suddenly looked angry, defensive. "You don't understand," she snapped, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think, it's just sex. It was a mistake, a stupid thing I did because I was feeling trapped. I don't love Jake, I never did. You have to believe me." Her words sounded rehearsed, hollow. I looked at her and realized how much she was lying, how much she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. I felt a deep wave of disgust. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about how selfish and bitchy she'd been, how she'd used me, manipulated me, and then had the nerve to ask me to believe her lies. I told her I was done, that I couldn't trust her anymore, and that she needed to leave. She looked at me with that fake, bitchy smirk, but I saw the panic behind her eyes. She knew she'd been caught and she didn't like it. She started crying, fake tears streaming down her face, her voice cracking as she begged me to forgive her, to work things out. "Please," she sobbed. "I love you. I didn't mean for this to happen. I swear I'll make it right. Just don't send me away." But I wasn't buying it anymore. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who could lie, cheat, and manipulate without conscience. I told her if she stayed, it would only be on my terms, and that from now on I'd be watching her every move. I made it clear that trust was broken beyond repair, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. Her bitchy attitude crumbled and she stormed out, screaming that I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her. But I didn't care. Enough was enough. That night I sat alone, staring at the evidence I'd collected, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I knew I'd do what I had to do, whether that was to forgive her or to walk away. I was done being the naive husband who believed in fairy tales. I learned a brutal lesson. Sometimes, the people who seem most perfect are the ones hiding the deepest lies. And if someone betrays you that badly, you have to decide whether to fight for the wreckage or to walk away before it destroys you entirely. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. After she left, the house felt emptier than ever, like the walls themselves were mourning. I kept looking at the evidence I'd gathered, trying to make sense of it all. Every message, every photo, every moment I'd trusted her gone. It was as if I'd been living in a nightmare and I wasn't sure how to wake up. But deep down, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her walk away from this, no matter how much it hurt. I decided to finalize everything. I contacted a lawyer, filed for divorce, and started planning my future without her. It still hurt, like a dull ache in my chest that wouldn't go away, but I felt a strange sense of relief, too. For the first time in months, I could breathe without that weight pressing down on me. I realized that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to cut out the poison, even if it means starting over from scratch. In the end, I learned some hard truths. Trust is fragile and people, especially those you love, can betray it in ways you never saw coming. Lisa's bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, those are things I'll never forget. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived her betrayal and I will move forward. Not because I want revenge or to punish her, but because I owe it to myself to heal and find peace. Looking back, I wish I could say I've forgiven her, but I haven't. Not yet. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I won't. But what I do know is that I won't let this destroy me. I'll take the lessons I've learned about trust, about boundaries, about myself, and use them to build a better life. One where I don't ignore the signs, where I don't let someone's fake smile fool me again. So, if you're reading this and going through something similar, here's my advice. Trust your instincts. Don't dismiss the little red flags, and never let someone treat you like you're less than you deserve. Because betrayal, especially by someone you love, cuts deep, but it also teaches you your worth. And no matter how much it hurts now, time will heal even the deepest wounds if you let it.